Welcome to another episode of the EMS Wizard podcast. You had the gentleman,
Mark.
Terry.
I feel it's important that we get this episode started right, and I would just like to point out that Mr. John C. Wilson, he's no longer with us.
Not dead.
Yes, he's still not. He's not dead. I guess no longer may have been too bold of a statement, but he's not with us tonight. So
he and Walter must be together wherever they're at then, because Walter also is no longer with us.
Walter's not with us.
And another fun fact, we actually have more guests on the show tonight than we do hosts.
I'm glad that you've recognized that it's John and I's show. I guess tonight John's not here, so
it's all on you, Terry.
Yeah,
it's all on you.
Sucks,
I'm just here. I'm just an ornament on the tree.
But we do have a special guest as opposed to a regular guest. So we've got Mr. Jason Reavis, who is the operations officer at Wilkes County EMS, and like I always say, the operations officer, the titles are made up because it's like deputy chief or deputy director or deputy something or another else. And so, hey, Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome, Jason.
Hey, Terry. Hey, Mark. Well, thanks for the invitation for sure.
So, Jason, let's start off with a little bit on your background, just kind of where you started in EMS, where you came up, a little bit about your story, your EMS story.
Yeah, and I think I'm probably like the vast majority of folks 25 years ago had a dad or an uncle or something in the fire department. Mine personally was my dad. He was a long-time fire instructor, and of course I kind of followed him around in the firehouse and doing the junior fireman thing, and eventually worked my way into the rescue squad, and then got out of high school, and I was like, I want to do this EMS thing. So pursued that career and worked briefly for a small private agency, and then come to Wilkes about 23 years ago.
So it's very Walter-esque sounding. And so Walter, who's not with us, but I feel inclined to ask this question. And he would talk about, they had some sort of ring down phone out in somewhere in Eastern North Carolina, wherever he got his start, and where it would ring at the Ford dealership if nobody picked up at the rescue squad, and then like one other place, like some mechanic shop. Did you have actual phones or actual radios? Because Walter talks about the radio that he had with his fire department with his granddad.
We actually did. In Wilkes, we had for the longest time 2 bases, one in North Wilkesboro, one in the eastern end over close to Elkin in Surrey County. And of course, it was before the 911 or enhanced 911, so the folks would call the EMS station, and that outpost base, if they had a call, they would divert the phone. It was a ring down phone that would automatically divert back to the North Wilkesboro base. Sure enough.
Wow, a little bit of history, So talking about Wilkes County EMS. I've what I've learned about Wilkes County EMS, I see some similarities between what you guys do and what we do in the East, because we're on kind of opposite ends of the state. You guys in the West, where I'm over here in the East. One of the things I found really unique and different was you guys giving thrombolytics in the pre-hospital environment for STEMI in some cases. I thought that was really unique. From at least from the guy in the East, I thought that was a really unique thing that you guys do, right? What is that like?
Absolutely. No, it's pretty awesome. It was our calling card for a long time. We started back early 2000s. Dr. Jeff Berry was our medical director, and he truly had a big foresight in cardiac care. And we started that, went through a program in Western Carolina. I actually tracked all our cases. I think we give it about 110 times prior to the PCI world taking over. Yeah, when the PCI world kind of took over and we went through a lot of physician changes, we still had the medication. We carry tenecteplase, and we carried it for a long time and never gave it. We probably went 5 or 6 years and never administered the first dose. until recently, and we've started. We've actually given it twice this week, so that
Wow.
that kind of helps a little bit there. But we're working with Dr. Jason Stapira, excuse me,
Hmm.
and Dr. Simon Mahler through Atrium. They're creating a fellowship group that's helping us work on getting some orders with our medical direction team to reach out and get ahead of these folks. From the center of our county to Atrium in Winston-Salem is 56 miles. So, depending on inclement weather or, what in the wintertime, it kind of gets questionable as to how long we can get there. And plus, as large as Wilkes is, we have some areas that, you're well over an hour from the time you have initial patient contact till you can get them to a PCI lab. So the T and case works so much better. You get that muscle and get that everything opened up and recirculating there long before you get to the PCI lab.
I think that's kind of one of the things as we talk about this, to cut Mark off, the in the East and in the West, that how similar and how different at the same time some things are, because you have some segments of Eastern North Carolina where for you weather means snow. For us out here in the East, is it flooding? Is it a hurricane? Is it severe thunderstorms? But I've been out in the mountains and seen fog just as terrible as I have seen in coastal North Carolina, that thick pea soup fog where you can barely see the lines on the road. And it's funny because in other places, they want to shut everything down. Oh my gosh, the fog's so terrible. But it's again, some of the similarities and differences all at the same time. Y'all are doing blood out there too, right? Are you part of that belt of agencies that are doing blood? Tell us a little bit about some of your experience with that.
Yeah, we are. We started our whole blood program April of 21. I think we've given it successfully 32 times now.
Nice.
Had great reports with this. We've been monitoring the shock index of our patients. Most of those administrations have been averaging well over 2. Post administration, we're getting back down to 0.7, 0.8. So we're really getting ahead of things there, and adding the calcium in with it, trying to get ahead of that triad of death there to make these folks have a better recovery time.
EMS is going through, I would say maybe a renaissance period as we're 50 years in as a profession, as an agency. The state of North Carolina just finishing up our 50th year anniversary. Mm-hmm. And so as you're doing some of these things, whether it's thrombolytics in the field, blood in the field, there's got to be a certain amount of evidence-based medicine and some study. And when we were doing this 30 years ago, hey, throw on the mass trousers, and then one study, and I don't get me on my high horse about that singular study out of Texas, but one study says that mass trousers don't work. Tell me how, for your agency or for you, as we make some of these shifts towards evidence-based or some of that research stuff, tell me how that's working for you, or what your thoughts are on our professional development.
Yeah, well, as you just said, Terry, we've came a long ways from the days of mass trousers to, then we developed into, okay, we're going to give them tons of saline and lactated ringers till they bleed pink. And, we just, rotating our tourniquets and doing all these different things. And things, the tourniquets seem to be coming back and doing well and working in conjunction with the blood and these things in our trauma care. But, paramedicine and pre-hospital medicine has advanced so much in the last 10 years, but the last 50 is amazingly, the presentation that John Wilson was at with me earlier this week, they were talking about funeral homes racing to scenes 50 years ago. And, now we're at the point of giving blood, giving thrombolytics, and taking care of these people, whether it's a definitive airway along with these things, and, essentially delivering them to an operating room ready to go. It's a significant difference, and we have to be proud of where we've come from to where we are now.
So one of the, talking about changes and transitions in pre-hospital setting, one of the changes that I know you guys went through not too terribly long ago was going to the 24/72 shift schedule. A lot of people seek that out because that's just like the go-to thing. Higher volume agencies might struggle with a little bit more because of the 24-hour shift length overall. But so what was that transition like, for you guys over there in Wilkes County?
So we had been to 12s for probably, I guess, 6.5 years. We had been 24/48 prior to that. And, working that typical 12-hour schedule of every other Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it was wearing our folks out. And we had lost some folks and we're losing more folks. And so we got to the point of, we had to address our service. We addressed it in-house with our staff and just reached out to them to see, which schedule, whether a modified schedule or one of these straightforward schedules would be more beneficial to them. And honestly, they had originally decided they wanted to do a hybrid schedule. We had some that wanted to do the 12s and some that wanted to do the 24s. And when it come down to it, though, nobody wanted to do the hybrid piece anymore. So we went with the straight 24/72, and we started in September. And so far, we were back to fully staffed until this coming week, and we're opening up a CP program, so that gives us some more slots to backfill. But yeah, we've had great success so far.
It's funny how sometimes we will say, let's go to this. So we're working these 24/48-hour shifts. Our folks are tired. And so let's go to this 12-hour shift to reduce fatigue.
Right.
But what I'm hearing from you, and this is not the first time that I've heard this, is our folks end up more fatigued, or that work-life balance that we talk a lot of times about gets jacked up.
Yeah, our staff was collectively from supervision down. The weekend was the bad piece. That Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're either at work, going to work, or coming back from work, and you don't have that time of downtime to try to catch up and get prepared for your next shift. And you just mentally, by that third day, you're mentally exhausted. And, our folks were making us aware of that.
So what does that conversation sound like? Because sometimes some folks will say, my agency administration doesn't listen to us, or some agency administrators will say, I know what's best for my people. And so what did that conversation sound like? Or what did the leadership team go into that looking for? Tell me a little bit about that discussion, that conversation.
We had heard, we pretty much have an open door policy at our service for our staff to come to us if they have an issue, obviously maintaining chain of command. But, if they have significant issues system wide, they can come to me and even on up to the director just to say, hey, here's an idea, here's a thought. And we had heard some of those rumblings and some of those talks. And as an administrator, you guys yourself, you understand, and you kind of take that and you file it back, and we'll see where this goes. And as those rumbles get louder, then you have to sit down, you have to address and say, okay, our folks are upset, our folks are struggling. How can we help them, and what can we do for them?
So Jason, you guys are, pretty high speed, low drag, with what you guys do there with, whole pre-hospital whole blood and thrombolytics and everything. And, so you guys have made giant leaps in the pre-hospital arena. Where do you see EMS going in the next 5 years, 10 years?
That's a good question.
That is a great question. And I think we have made leaps and bounds, and I think it's right exactly where we're going and the path that we're making, along with the other agencies that are out there. We're just going to expand the pre-hospital care for those agencies that really want to be, I say aggressive because it's the word that we've used for 25 years, is you want to be an aggressive medic, you want to be an aggressive pre-hospital care clinician. But really, it's providing the best patient care. In a county where you're an hour away from a trauma center, if you can truly provide definitive care more so than supportive care, that's the way to, how can you take care of these patients and what can you do for these folks? I think more and more they're going to be looking at us, not even for these, as you speak, high speed, low drag calls, but more and more primary care folks. The community paramedicine, I think, is going to have a lot in a lot of agencies to reduce the drag in the hospitals and help our agencies out with some call numbers. And, I hear from a lot of folks that falls and apparently the earth has shifted or something that falls the state are significant. So I think that's a piece we're going to have to address somehow to help our folks that are working on the 911 trucks.
Yeah. So, as a guy that kind of was working as a training officer at one point and come in as a training and operations guy, and then now we're more operations, kind of seeing both things, both of those different perspectives in our profession. Whenever you have those employees that, well, why do we need this? Why do we need to go down this route? Why do we need this much more, this additional medication, this additional, why isn't what we're doing now okay? Why do I need to know all this? How do you take those paramedics that are probably more resilient to that change to help them to accept that change as a leader of an organization?
And truthfully, those are where I sit down with small groups, even individually, and we talk about the why. And we talk about, we'll start back at the basis of why we're here and why we do what we do. And we talk about the very things we just talked about, is where we're going and what can we do for our folks. And, it catches fire when they realize and understand that, what we really want to do is provide the best patient care and the best interaction that we physically can and feasibly can for our patients. And, the staff, I don't want to say buys into it, but the staff believes and takes care of that at that point, and, grasp the reins with both hands, and here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. So what if I was a paramedic at Wilkes County EMS and I'm, on top of everything, on top of my game, and I come to you, Jason, what is it I need to do to best prepare myself for that next rung on the ladder, whether that's an assistant supervisor, a shift supervisor, FTO, whatever that next rung is, to kind of to climb that chain of command? What would be your advice to someone that's looking to advance from that truck medic level to work up that officer rank?
Yeah, Mark, we have several people right now currently that are in the realm of wanting to promote, as we have some folks that are going to age out and retire before long. And those conversations we have with those folks are pretty much, as you work on the truck, be that example, be that leader. As you guys teach and as we talk a lot, you don't have to have a title to be a leader. So be that example, be that shining light on that truck, and stand out in the service. You kind of interview every day before an interview is actually there. Make it be to the point of where a promotion is all but a given based on your interview and what you do day to day. Strive to be the best, strive to help someone else, and find your path, whether it's training, whether it's operations, whether it's logistics. You're going to work with those above you and figure out a pathway of what feels home to you and what feels right. And that's kind of what we want folks to do, is to focus and just help others and grow along the way to get to that point.
So Jason, it's almost like you've teed me up perfectly for asking you about a career ladder in EMS. And you've heard me say about to talk about this, that our profession 50 years old versus the fire service 250 years, and I'm just rounding that for the American fire service. Law enforcement, they can go to the sheriffs of your, and there's just a long history and tradition with our brothers and sisters in other public safety, but in EMS, we don't even know what collar insignia we want to wear. and so if you were king of the world and you were to talk about a career ladder, maybe it's something you're looking at, maybe it's something that you've just thought about, or maybe it's just something that you saw somebody else doing and you said, gosh, how do we do this? I'd like to do this. So again, you're king of the world. What would a career ladder look like for you? 1, 2, 3, go.
Yeah, I think what we need to do in the perfect world there is to make sure we have exposure to our folks to all facets of those things. That ladder can get slippery sometimes, whether you know where you're climbing on it or not. And so if folks have some exposure to things such as training, such as operations or the logistics piece, and have an opportunity to understand and develop a passion before they try to maneuver, that kind of gives them a pathway. For the longest time in EMS across the world and in our agency, you promoted to a training, to an FTO, and then, to a lieutenant, to a captain. And then as myself, was fortunate enough to promote up to the operations officer. But everyone's not destined to be an instructor. Everybody's not destined to be a teacher. Obviously, if you're on a truck and you help someone, you're going to teach in some manner, but standing in front of a group or sitting on a podcast is not made for everyone. And so it may be that decision-making piece or that logistic piece and that inventory world that someone really needs to be comfortable with and develops that passion with, and they need to follow that passion and move there. A poor training officer is just going to set you up for failure. So you have to make sure people are passionate about what they're doing.
Yeah, that reminds me of something that from one of our first few podcasts we had done. One thing that Josh had said was seek first to understand. And, I still hear that in my mind. We need to seek first to understand. So whenever we look at these promotional opportunities, what are we doing to best prepare ourselves, for that next position, and do we truly understand what that next position is going to entail? I had no clue what the training officer really done until I got into that position. I knew, I understood what I saw the training officer do, but I didn't fully understand a lot of that stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think that's some very wise words, is to seek first to understand, before you even start looking at those promotion processes.
No, absolutely.
So you were talking about seeing John earlier, and you guys, that was a pretty big celebration for you folks out there, that you were dedicating a new base. And so tell us a little bit. Number one, congratulations. Mark and I are sorry that we couldn't make it out from our little slice of the state out to the other end of the wheel. But congratulations, not just to you, but to your entire team, to your county. That's something it's not quite a rarity, but that's a bit of a rarity in EMS. We've struggled with facilities, and that ball has been rolling with a couple of agencies. So tell us a little bit what went into that construction, that timeline, or whether it's your role or some of the other things that, if somebody's listening to this and they say, gosh, we're looking to build a station, what are some lessons that you learned or some things that you're grateful for or thankful for along the way?
Yeah, so thanks for the kind words, for sure. And we are definitely a fortunate group, and we're blessed with a beautiful facility, we feel, and our commissioners and our leadership definitely have taken care of us in this facility. We've gone from 8,000 square feet to a 26,000 square foot facility. So it's,
wow.
We have more room and we know what to do with, but I feel sure we'll fill it up pretty quickly. But no, it's definitely, from groundbreaking to finish was about 2 years. We had a little bit longer than that for our planning piece. The biggest thing I would tell folks is to develop an idea of what you think you want. And then one thing we did was search EMS bases up and down the East Coast with pictures. And we looked and we looked. We actually went to Montgomery County, Tennessee, just north of Nashville, and looked at their base and spent an entire day with those folks at their base and developed a lot of things that they done for what we wanted. We wanted one singular drive-through bay versus 10 garage doors. And so we were able to do that. We've got, one bay parking for 10 vehicles with just 2 garage doors, which works out super nice for us. But just find little things that you see that catches your eye, and don't rule anything out, because you never know what really can make a difference in your agency.
So what do you think are some things that make your facility unique? Or that, hearing that bay concept, and I'd seen the pictures and said, man, that's pretty unique. And I haven't stalked the county social media yet to see the video tour, which inevitably is there. But what are some other things that your folks are? If I walked up to one of your paramedics or your lieutenants and said, "What are you most proud of?" or "What do you think sets your facility aside?" What are some things you think they would say?
I think the thing that most people see first of all, it has nothing to do with the building. It has to do with the view and where it's at. I think you've seen some pictures of that. But no, we're very fortunate with where our piece of property is, and
it does not suck
with the view of what we have. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But no, the Bay concept is super nice. We have a significant area for our staff to move about. We've kind of separated an admin hall and a staff quarters, I guess you could say, or their staff building. They still have access to us. They can still get on our hallway, come see us, come talk to us, and we still go view them. But it still gives them an opportunity for us to separate. In the building we were in before, we were all right there together. Everybody's in the mix. Everybody's knowing what everybody's having for lunch or what brother and sister's doing day in, day out. We have the ability to separate that now. We've got a large training room for you guys to come teach in, for our folks to teach in, plus a separate sim lab for some breakout classes. So, and just a lot of ability for our staff to move about and have a good time and enjoy while they're at work.
So, Jason, as our time starts to draw near to an end here, going back 20 plus years in the career, if you could sit down with yourself as a young man, and sometimes we ask our guests this, if they're able to go back in time with a younger gentleman or lady and give some advice in career life, what's something that you would give yourself, something that you think would be important for our listeners that are out there, these young gentlemen and ladies that you learned along the way, maybe the school of hard knocks, that you would say in advice to one of them?
I think it's probably a conversation I had with one of my captains actually in the last couple of days. We've talked a lot about the progressive care and the things that we do, but this captain provided great care for a patient by doing nothing more than just talking and listening to the patient. And, I think that's something that we lose and we forget, is sometimes these folks just need some comfort and some talking to ease their anxiety in whatever situation it may be, whether it's a STEMI or a sepsis issue or whatever it may be. But, just have the ability to talk and understand and actually just listen to what your patients say. Never lose that. Always have that. And you'll gain the trust of your patient and your community by far.
So speaking of talking, I think we a lot of times as leaders, as professionals, we have to have somebody to talk to as well. And I would say probably one of the best people to talk to is a best friend. And so if I were to ask you who is your, don't shake your head, Mark.
Don't feel obligated to answer this crazy question.
You should answer this question because we're judging you. The listeners are judging you.
It's supposed to be a judge-free zone.
It's supposed to be, yet it is. And we got some metrics. We've got listeners in all of the continents. So
yeah. We're international. The Wizard's gone international.
Correct. So who's Jason's best friend?
So I probably have to say I have a couple, and Terry, I'll be honest, I don't know why, but I knew you were going to ask that question. And neither one of these guys actually have anything to do with public service or healthcare in any way. They both do something completely different, and it gives us the ability to talk about something that we never have to deal with. One may be flying a plane, one may be building a house, but and then we can talk about the paramedic life or whatever it may be, but it's a great mixture of stress-free and worry-free. You don't have to have that continual speaking of everything that you do day in, day out.
Sounds like multiple lenses to be looking through for all your friends.
There you go.
It sounds like Keith and I. Keith, he's not, I mean, he is, but he doesn't do EMS. So,
I
man,
mean, I feel like we're like 20 something odd podcast episodes in, and Keith still hasn't accepted the invite or.
I had Thanksgiving dinner with him.
Oh, so he does exist.
Oh.
He played me some Nickelback too, actually.